Hi, this is Chuck Braverman, and it's another episode of Westdoc Online, brought to you in partnership by Real Screen. And their event coming up, Real Screen Live, is June 7th to the 11th. Go to the bottom of our westdoconline.com page, and there's a Real Screen icon there you can click on and go directly to registration. If you're in the business, you're going to want to be at Real Screen, and it's a great place to meet people, commissioning editors, producers, directors, buyers from everywhere, and other filmmakers. Check it out. Today, we have Sue Kim, and a first-time filmmaker who's made a terrific doc called Speed Cubers that Netflix has gotten involved with and is currently running on Netflix, available. You can see the entire film there. Let's meet the filmmaker, Sue Kim. Hi, Sue. How are you?
Hi, Chuck. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
It's really a pleasure to have you on the show. Where are you speaking from? Where are you?
I'm speaking from Portland, Oregon.
Portland. I have
Yeah.
friends up in Portland. Is it raining up there now or no?
It's actually not for the first time in like 4 months. So we're getting a nice little break from the, near constant gray and rain.
Chris Roth is a friend of mine from a production company called The Other Place. He went to school with my son in Portland. Do you know him?
Oh,
No.
nice. I don't
Okay.
know. It's a pretty
Actually,
small community here too, so I'm sure I'll run into him someday.
well, he's a terrific filmmaker and a graphic artist and done some great
Oh,
work.
nice.
So your film, Speed Cubers, I must admit, having 100 and I don't know how many films were submitted. Do you remember the number?
There
100?
140 or
That
something
sounds right.
like that.
So what happens is I'm a member of the Academy and I have access to all the films. And so you have to be, and the Academy assigns each member randomly 15%. So you were
Oh, right.
assigned out of 140, I had to watch 25 of them. And then
Yeah.
there are another dozen that you know about that may not be on your list that you heard about. And then there's some that you scroll down and you see the film and you say, and you can get a one sentence. And I must tell you, I skipped your film the first time around
Yeah.
because I just figured, I don't know, Rubik's cubes, speed cubers. I didn't think that was in my wheelhouse, so to speak.
Yes.
And then it made the short list. And of course, I watched all the films and I was just, I shouldn't say I'm stunned. I'm so pleasantly surprised. The film is just so wonderful on so many levels. How did it come about? What's the story of this film?
Yeah, well, it happened very naturally. It sort of fell in my lap, in that I'm a cubing mom. So my son is a speed cuber, and he started speed cubing about 4 years ago. And the first time he dragged me to a local competition, I walked in and immediately was just confronted with kids and adults racing from tables and furiously solving, and just the cacophony of this like unique and quirky little circus that was happening. And I instantly thought, someone must have made a documentary about this world already. But if someone hasn't, I want to make a documentary about this world because I just found it sort of endlessly fascinating. So that's actually how I got introduced to the cubing universe, is by my son.
So stop right
And
there because I want
yes,
to show the first couple minutes of the film so people will know what we're talking about. And we'll come right back.
okay,
I want to hear the rest of this conversation.
yeah.
Thank you all for coming to the WCA World Championships 2019.
Who do you think will win the World Championships today? Well, it's pretty tough competition.
My bet is on Felix Zemdex.
Felix Zemdex.
Pretty much one of the greatest cubers of all time.
I really want Felix to win again.
From Australia, Felix Zemdex.
I personally think Max Park will win because he's the most consistent cuber here.
I'd probably say Max Park. Max Park. Max Park will be world champion.
From the United States of America, Max Park.
I can't really decide between them.
They're very close, so it's definitely going to be exciting.
You know, if you've watched that and you don't want to see the rest of the film, there's something wrong with you. And I happen to know a secret because I've done a little research, so I happen to know a little bit about that wild feminist in there. You want to tell us who that is?
That's my son. Yeah. He's a cuber. So of course I took him filming with me the whole film, all the locations, meeting Felix and Max, which was his fantasy to meet his idols. But he was competing at the world championships. And he didn't want to be in the movie, but I found tiny little ways to pull him in and little cameos. So yeah.
So he got you interested in the cubers, and how did you find Max and Felix, or what? Yeah. What's that
storyline?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we became part of the cubing universe. We became very embedded. That's our weekends. We traveled to the competitions, and then we started going to the bigger competitions. And I went to the U.S. Nationals 2018 with my son, who was competing. And at that point, I had already decided I'm definitely making a documentary about cubing. And the story of it was a little bit unformed, but I knew I wanted to embed it in the world of cubing and kind of just maybe do an overview of that competitive landscape. But what happened was we went to the U.S. Nationals 2018, and that's the first time I saw Felix and Max in the same room. And we don't get to see Felix a lot because he lives over in Australia, so it's pretty rare for us to see him at a competition. I knew of them by reputation before we went to that competition because they're both sort of equally the best in the world. There's a lot of lore behind both of them. And so I knew to watch out for them as the two most likely to win that competition. What I didn't anticipate witnessing was their budding friendship happening at that time. And it was just really obvious, Felix and Max really just stuck together. Felix was one of the few people that Max would sit with at tables practicing in between heats. He kind of followed him around. Felix would sort of make sure he was always included in photos. And there just was this very, very visibly tender and nascent friendship that was happening with them, while at the same time, they were being pitted against each other very fiercely as the top two rivals going into this very big competition. And it was something that I had never seen before, rivalry between two of the top competitors that so obviously loved each other and were actively building a friendship with each other. So when I saw that, that's instantly when the movie turned for me, and it became, yes, ostensibly it's going to be a film about speed cubing, but really it's going to be a story about these sort of extraordinary two human beings and their friendship / rivalry, and what competition may or may not do to that friendship.
And unfortunately, I don't have a bio on you or anything from our mutual friend David. So what's your film background, and how did you, what's your story?
Yeah. Well, my story is, this is actually my first film. It's first time directing and first time producing a film. But I have been film adjacent for quite a long time. So I have been a producer and executive producer on the commercial side. So making branded content for brands like Nike and Adidas, or working for advertising agencies making short form commercials, 60-second TV spots. So Professionally, I've grown up on film sets, and working in production is my main mode of working, but I'd never done it for the film side. And what's funny is I had to quit my job to make this film because I just kept trying to balance this very sort of like demanding work schedule, and then trying to get this passion project off the ground on my weekends and evenings. It just wasn't happening. So I just kind of had to, put my money where my mouth was, and like really make a commitment to getting this passion project made. So this is my first foray in the film world, and specifically the nonfiction film world.
So I see in the credits of the film Wyden Kennedy, and I assume that's where you worked, and then
Yes.
they were involved, or to some degree, or
So
trying
they
to
weren't
tell you
really
what
involved.
to do.
No, not at all, actually. They weren't creatively involved, but they were an amazing post-production partner. So I was an EP there for the global Nike account. And they knew I left to make this film, and they were very supportive, and we stayed in we had a great relationship. And they have this amazing post-production facility that they usually use for their commercials. And what was great is they're trying to get into more of a creative IP, non-branded content space. So we made just a little bit of a partnership where they, got production credit on this film, but they also gave us completely free post-production, which is amazing because they have some of the best like colorists and sound mixers in the world, and we got to use their facilities. So it was a great relationship. And yeah, I didn't have to, go back and forth with them on anything creative. They just were there as a support for our film, but specifically on the post-production side.
And I don't remember seeing any Nike
No.
logos, or
Yeah.
just anybody saying just do it, right?
No, I know it would be a perfect slogan, right? In the heat of competition. No, I completely left the branded space.
And
I'm
how
sure I
did
probably wore some Nikes.
and what about Netflix? At what stage did Netflix come in?
So Netflix came in pretty early, and that was like such a great blessing to us because I had self-funded a few shoots leading up to the world competition, but then we had to go to Australia to film Felix, and that's where the world competition was. Also, the competitors, when they're competing simultaneously. So there's no way we could have taken our previously skeleton crew to Worlds and really captured all of the action that we needed to capture. So what happened was I pulled a treatment together after we had done a few shoots. We pulled a little kind of financing trailer together, and we sent that to Netflix just to see if they would be interested at that kind of pitch treatment phase. And they were, and it was so surprising because I really didn't expect to hear back from them. But what happened was they expressed interest in our film very early on, but they told us that they thought it would be better as a short instead of the feature that we were originally planning. So that took a little time because I had to sit with that feedback and really, really kind of do some soul searching because in my mind, it was a feature, and I had this whole, storyline with side characters and sub storylines, and I had to really kind of whittle down to the sort of very purest storyline, which was the Felix and Max storyline, and remove kind of all the additive elements, and then kind of go back to them and say, yes, I think we can make a short out of this. So they came on before we really had to do all of that principal filming overseas. And that was great because I don't know how we would have funded that to this day. I think, everything happens for a reason. And when Netflix came on board was exactly when we needed them to come on board. And thankfully, that's how we were able to make sure the film got made.
I see there are 2 cameraman credits. Were there more than 2 crews at the World? And can you also give me a rough idea of what the budget is for a film like this?
Yeah. So at Worlds, we had 4 units, and we needed that for a variety of reasons. One, just to have one camera committed to Felix, one camera unit committed to Max. Then we needed a stationary camera that was sort of on a dais set back that had the clear shot of the stage. And that's because we couldn't have access to the stage, really. We weren't allowed to. That's why in the final scenes, you see kind of microphone stands blocking your view. Like, we had to get risers built to be off to the side of the stage in order to get any kind of camera vantage point to the competitors. And then we had one camera unit roving the crowd. So there was and the thing was too, there was 3 separate competition rooms as well. So we really needed to be sort of this multi-tentacled unit in order to accurately capture everything, especially given that you never knew when someone was going to break a world record. And so you're needing to make sure coverage is everywhere at all times. So that was our setup for the majority of the World Championships. I think budget-wise, it ended up being somewhere for us in the couple 100,000 range, which might seem like a lot for a short, but we did capture enough footage to easily have made a feature. And I think it was the international component and the fact that we were filming them for a good 6 months in several different locations. So yeah, but we were still pretty scrappy. Like, we were not staying at nice hotels and Airbnb together with the whole crew, and it just, yeah, that's kind of what it took to cover all the potential action of what could happen.
I love getting a little geeky and asking you what kind of cameras they were shooting on. And by the way, the post and the coloring and the sound and everything was just absolutely top rate. But what do you know? What cameras were they using? Out of curiosity.
Yeah, one of our DPs was using a Canon C300. We started shooting on that. Then what we found was we had a little bit of a resource change in Australia, and one of our camera operators couldn't continue, and then we had to work with local production crews who are wonderful, but the C300s are not readily available in Australia. So the closest kind of comparable camera that was very prevalent over in Australia was a Sony FS7. So then the rest of our camera operator and DP crew shot on a Sony FS7.
Well, they're both fabulous cameras, and
yeah.
So just let's let our viewers. I put together a couple clips again from the front end of the film, and we'll talk about what's missing after we look at this short series of clips here.
As a baby, as soon as we brought him home from the hospital, I felt something was a little off. We took him to the hospital where we met with a child neurophysician, and he, at that time, formally diagnosed Max with autism.
First thing I was thinking is, I don't know, it's just you kind of lost to your future kind of thing. You had a beautiful, I'm gonna do this to my child and do this and that, and it's just kind of like shut the door in front of you.
I remember we were sitting at the edge of our bed, and we were just hugging each other, and we just both lost it. We were just crying, and I think, to me, it felt like, let's cry our hearts out now and get to work.
Hey, Matt, are you tired?
From that point on is when we started to look for answers.
So he started to open up his world.
I think that was sort of like the first time that Mickey started to enjoy her child as a child. It lit sort of like a fire within us to want more. How can we get more of this?
We had a Rubik's Cube in the house, so he just wanted to solve. I thought, why not?
he just gravitated towards it. Nikki right away went on YouTube and figured out how to solve it, and then taught Max. So she had two agendas in mind. Here was something that I could use as a teaching component, but at the same time, he loves it, and it would be a great thing for them to connect together, not knowing at that time that he was just gonna rapid fire down this rabbit hole.
What is it?
31 seconds.
Okay.
So what's great about this film, which you don't know if you don't know up front, is on the surface, it looks like it's a competition film about speed cubers and the contest, which of course it is about that, but that's not what it's really about. And I think the first half of the film is about pretty much about Max, and then it really becomes a relationship film, and such a great story. And you know what's missing from the clips is Felix, and I didn't want to give away too much of the film. I want people to go to Netflix and I want them to watch the whole film because it's such a joy. But how did the story for you develop? I mean, there's so many elements going on here, and you must have been feeling like you were juggling a bunch of different storylines and things that were going on.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of storylines kind of underneath the main storyline, but for me the focus was always going to be the Felix Max relationship, because that's the thing that I saw at nationals. That's the thing that, when I saw it from afar, it moved me. Like I would get kind of teary watching them together. And I just thought that this is something, it's a competitive rivalry that we never see, and it feels so like life affirming and humanistic to watch these two competitors learn to love each other and try to build this friendship. So we stayed close to that storyline, and we of course with Max's storyline, as you saw in the clip, there's an added layer of complexity, which is that Max is autistic. So we definitely wanted to cover that as our foundational. We're telling the origin story of both Max and Felix and how they came to the Rubik's Cube and how they became champions and then eventually met. So part of Max's origin story is his autism and how his parents introduced him to the Rubik's Cube initially as a means of physical therapy for his fine motor skills, which I think is so amazing that's actually how he came to the cube, because now his finger dexterity is like it's like a robot. It's so perfect and quick, and it's kind of become his greatest skill as a competitor, is his fine motor skill. So that we had to tell that storyline, but I also wanted to make sure that the autistic component of Max's therapy with the Rubik's Cube, that just stayed as part of the origin, and it didn't become the storyline, because that isn't who Max is as a person. He's a very multidimensional human being. His being autistic is an important part of who he is, but it doesn't define him. So we wanted to make sure that we portrayed his rise to being a champion and his friendship with Felix as that of an equal, because that's exactly what it is. It's no one in the cubing world ever treats him as if he's disabled or needs any special treatment, really. It's just he's a rock star in that world, and so is Felix. So we just made sure to stay close to that friendship. And the friendship, what you see in the film, that's really how it unfolds. They really spend time with each other as much as they can outside of competitions. They go karaokeing together. They do dinners every time they're in the same area. Felix has come over to Southern California and stayed with the Parks for a couple weeks just to learn more about Max and his autism and how he can help. So we used their friendship as the North Star for the story and just went wherever it naturally took us. And we knew, of course, it would sort of culminate at the World Championship, which was great because it gives another storyline to the film that's forward moving. You're invested in finding out what's going to happen at the end of this event. So it coincided nicely with the two storylines we were following. It's nice that there was this culminating event to kind of cap it off.
It's sort of shocking to see this film and think that it's from a first-time filmmaker, although, as you said, you've been film adjacent for some time, which is like saying you kind of cheated. You can claim you're a first-time filmmaker, but we know a little differently. But so that begs the question: is to avoid the first-time filmmaker flame out, which I've seen happen several times with much less experienced people than you. Are you going back to work at the ad agency, or are you going to make more docs? And what's next for you?
Yeah, I quit permanently. This is my new life. Like, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't know how I would take to directing, because I've been producing for so long, and I'm so used to executing other people's creative vision, that the idea of, oh, everyone gets to execute my creative vision, it was such a game changer for me. And so I wasn't sure how I would take to it, but actually making this film was maybe the happiest time of my professional life. So, but it's also, you're a filmmaker as well, so it's, there's also so many roadblocks, and so many times a film almost dies on the way to getting made. So there were definitely times during this process where I thought to myself, oh my God, I'm never doing this again. This is so difficult. But the minute it was done, I was like, what's next? I can't, I have to keep doing this. So I'm actually working on, I'm in development on my next film. And yeah, I kind of plan, I love this so much. I loved every minute of it, not just filming it, but like crafting it in the edit bay, working with the composer on the score. Like every element of this process was so creatively fulfilling. That, yeah, I'm gonna try to make my life in such a way that I can hopefully do this forever.
Well, thank you very much for being on Westdoc. We really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.